store was already full when it happened. Customers stood in line. The scanner beeped. The lights were bright. Everything looked normal, until the manager leaned in and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "If you can't handle pressure, maybe this job isn't for you." A black woman at the register froze. Her hands shook. One tear slipped out despite her effort to hold it back. No one moved. No one spoke. Silence did the rest. What no one in that store knew was that a quiet man standing a few feet away, baseball cap pulled low, dressed like any other customer, was actually the owner of the entire company. And in that moment, watching a young black employee be humiliated in public, he realized something terrifying. The problem wasn't one bad manager. The problem was a system that punished dignity and rewarded silence. And the truth he was about to uncover would change every life in that store, starting with hers. Mason Whitaker pulled the cap low over his forehead as the automatic doors slid open with a soft hiss. It was barely past dawn in Indianapolis, the kind of hour when the city still felt half asleep and people moved like they didn't want to be noticed. That was exactly what he wanted. Inside the store, the lights were only partially on. The smell of disinfectant lingered in the air, sharp and clean. Boxes waited at the end of an aisle, untouched. Everything looked fine. Better than fine, actually. This location always did well on paper. Profits up, complaints down, staff retention acceptable. And then he saw her. She stood at the first register, hands gripping the edge of the counter as if it were the only thing keeping her upright. Her uniform was neat, pressed, the pale blue fabric unwrinkled. Her name tag caught the light. Tiana. Her shoulders trembled, not loudly, not in a way that demanded attention, just enough to betray the tears she was trying to hold back. One fell anyway, landing on the counter. She wiped it away fast with the back of her hand, as if embarrassed by her own body for failing her. Mason stopped walking. This wasn't exhaustion. This wasn't a bad morning. He had seen this before, years ago when he was younger and poorer and worked under men who thought pressure meant cruelty. This was fear, carefully disguised as professionalism. Tiana inhaled slowly, straightened her spine, and practiced a small smile in the reflective surface of the register screen. It didn't last. Her eyes were still red. Her jaw was tight, like she was biting down on words she couldn't afford to say. Then she noticed him. Her head snapped up, eyes widening for a split second before the mask slid back into place. "Good morning," she said. Her voice was steady but too soft. "We're not officially open yet, but I can help you if you need something." Mason nodded, playing the role. "I can wait." She gave a quick, grateful nod and turned back to the register, pretending to organize something that was already perfectly aligned. Her fingers shook, just slightly, enough that only someone paying attention would notice. Mason leaned against a nearby shelf, heart heavy. He hadn't planned this visit. There was no memo, no checklist. He just wanted to see one of his stores the way customers saw it, without titles, without fear, without people standing straighter because the owner walked in. What he didn't expect was to walk into silence so loud it hurt. The doors opened fully a few minutes later. Customers trickled in. The store came alive. Tiana's posture shifted instantly, like a switch had flipped. She greeted the first customer with polite efficiency, her smile practiced and distant. She apologized for a price she hadn't set. She thanked people who barely looked at her. Every movement felt rehearsed, controlled, as if she were performing under an invisible spotlight. Mason watched closely. When a customer frowned at a total on the screen, Tiana flinched before the woman even spoke. "I can double-check that," she said quickly. "I'm sorry." She said sorry again when there was nothing to apologize for. Other employees arrived. They greeted each other with quick nods, short hellos. No one lingered near Tiana. No one asked how she was doing. It wasn't coldness, it was caution. The kind that grows in places where attention can be dangerous. Mason's chest tightened. He picked up a small item, a pack of gum, something cheap, and walked to her register. "Whenever you're ready," he said. She scanned it quickly. "Card or cash?" "Card." The transaction was smooth. Perfect. When she handed him the receipt, her fingers brushed his. The contact was accidental and brief, but she pulled back like she'd been burned. "Sorry," she murmured. Mason held her gaze. You don't have to apologize for that. Her face went still. For a moment, she didn't respond. Then she looked down. It's just habit. Habit. The word landed hard. Mason knew exactly how habits like that were formed. Before he could say anything else, the air in the store shifted. A man stepped out of the manager's office with sharp, deliberate movements. He wore a crisp button-down and an expression that never seemed satisfied. Logan Granger. Mason recognized him immediately, even under the cap. Tiana did too. Her shoulders stiffened. Her eyes dropped. Her hands went flat on the counter. Logan walked up to her register, glancing at the short line forming. You're slowing things down, he said, voice calm but edged with authority. I'm moving as fast as I can, Tiana replied quietly. Logan crossed his arms. Doesn't look like it. A few customers glanced over. No one spoke. Professional attitude matters, Logan continued. You can't bring emotions into this job. Mason felt his jaw tighten. Tiana swallowed. My mom was sick last night. I didn't sleep much, but I'm doing my best. I didn't ask for excuses, Logan cut in, louder now. I asked for results. The word excuses hung in the air, heavy, loaded. If you can't handle pressure, Logan went on, maybe this isn't the right place for you. Plenty of people would love this job. Tiana's eyes filled despite her effort to stop it. One tear slipped free. Logan noticed. He always did. See? He said, gesturing lightly. This. Crying on the floor. That's not a good look. Something inside Mason snapped. Tiana wiped her face quickly, nodding as if she'd been corrected. I'm sorry, she whispered, and turned to the next customer. Mason stood frozen, shame burning hotter than anger. This wasn't a private reprimand. This was public humiliation, delivered calmly, professionally, clean enough to hide behind policy. And it felt painfully familiar. Because Tiana was a black woman in a uniform, and Logan knew exactly how far he could push. He knew the customers would stay quiet. He knew the employees would look away. He knew the system would protect him. Mason left the store without buying anything else. Outside, the noise of traffic felt too loud, too real. He sat in his car, staring at the steering wheel, replaying the scene over and over. The tear, the silence, the way no one intervened. His phone buzzed. A message from corporate. Monthly performance report ready. All indicators positive. Mason laughed once, bitter and humorless. Positive for who? That night he barely slept. He thought about how often people like Tiana were labeled emotional, too sensitive, not a good fit. How those words were weaponized, especially against people of color, especially against women who couldn't afford to fight back. The next morning, Mason walked into headquarters without the cap. He sat at the head of the long glass table as regional supervisors filed in. Logan Granger arrived last, confident, relaxed. A man who believed numbers were armor. Mason waited until the room fell silent. Before we discuss sales, he said evenly, I want to talk about something I saw yesterday. Logan looked up, alert now. I visited one of our stores, Mason continued. As a customer, the room shifted. I watched an employee get humiliated in front of customers for showing humanity. Mason turned his head slightly. His eyes landed on Logan. The manager responsible was Logan Granger. Logan opened his mouth. Sir, if I could explain. Not yet, Mason said, voice firm. The silence that followed was thick, uncomfortable, necessary. Mason leaned forward. What I saw wasn't leadership, it was control. And it happened because too many people stay silent when power is abused. He paused, letting it sink in. As of today, there will be consequences. Logan's confidence faltered. And somewhere across the city at a register in Indianapolis, Tiana Brooks was preparing for another shift, unaware that the quiet she'd been forced to live with was about to be broken. Sometimes injustice doesn't scream. Sometimes it whispers, until someone finally decides to listen. Now let me ask you something. If you were in Tiana's place, would you have stayed silent just to keep your job? Yes or no? Tiana Brooks stood in front of her bathroom mirror long after the alarm stopped ringing. The uniform hung on the back of the door, pale blue and perfectly ironed. It looked harmless. It always did, but her stomach tightened the moment she reached for it. The memory of yesterday hadn't faded overnight. If anything, it felt heavier, like it had settled into her bones. She turned on the faucet, letting cold water run over her wrists. "Just get through today," she whispered to herself. "Just one more shift." That was always the promise. One more shift. One more day of keeping her head down. One more apology she didn't know. At the store, nothing looked different. The shelves were full, the lights bright. Customers moved through the aisles, unaware of the tension that lived behind the counter. To anyone walking in, it was just another ordinary morning. But Tiana felt it the second she stepped inside. The air was thick with watchfulness. Conversations between co-workers stopped when she approached, not because they blamed her, but because they were afraid. Afraid of being seen aligning with her. Afraid of becoming the next example. Logan Granger hadn't arrived yet. That knowledge brought a strange mix of relief and dread. Relief because the silence felt lighter without him. Dread because silence never lasted. Tiana took her place at Register 1. Same spot, same routine. Her hands moved automatically, muscle memory taking over. Greet, scan, bag, smile, don't react. Mid-morning, a customer leaned in and said quietly, "You handled yesterday with a lot of grace." Tiana blinked. The woman didn't wait for a response. She paid and walked away, like saying more would be dangerous. Grace, another word that often meant endure quietly. Around 11, the door to the manager's office opened. Logan stepped out. The temperature of the room seemed to drop. Tiana felt it in her chest before she even saw him. Her shoulders tensed, her eyes lowered. She hated that her body reacted before her mind could stop it. Logan didn't speak to her right away. That was worse. He paced the floor, scanning the store like a general inspecting troops. When he finally stopped at her register, he leaned slightly forward. "You seem tense," he said. "That's not good for customer experience." Tiana kept her voice even. "I'm focused on my work." Logan smiled thinly. "Focus harder." A few customers glanced over. One man shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. "Remember what we talked about," Logan continued, voice calm enough to sound reasonable. "Attitude matters. Perception matters. We don't want problems." "Problems," the word echoed. Tiana nodded. "Yes, sir." Logan walked away, satisfied. What he didn't see was her hand gripping the edge of the counter so tightly her knuckles turned white. What no one saw was how close she was to breaking. Not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, in a way that would be blamed on her. At headquarters across town, Mason Whitaker sat in his office staring at the city skyline. His phone buzzed with emails, meetings, numbers. None of it mattered. He replayed the moment in the store again and again. The way Logan spoke, the way Tiana shrank, the way the room complied with silence. Mason had spent years convincing himself that distance made him a better leader, that systems worked if the data looked clean. Yesterday shattered that illusion. He picked up the phone and made a call that surprised even himself. "I want unfiltered reports," he said. "Not summaries, not metrics. I want employee feedback from the floor. Anonymous. Now." There was a pause on the other end. "Sir, that process takes time." "So does rebuilding trust," Mason replied. "Start." By early afternoon, the first messages came in. Short, careful, anonymous. "He humiliates people. Everyone is scared to speak, especially the black women. He singles them out. If you cry, you're done. HR never helps." Mason closed his eyes. This wasn't about one store. It was a pattern. Back at the store, the tension finally snapped. A line formed at Tiana's register. She was alone again. Logan noticed immediately. "What's taking so long?" he said, louder than necessary. "I don't have backup right now," Tiana replied. "I can call for help." Logan laughed softly. "Or you could just move faster." "I'm doing my best." "Oh, there it is again," he said, voice rising. That tone. Customers froze. The store went quiet. "What tone?" Tiana asked, her voice trembling despite her effort. "That defensive one," Logan said. "The one that tells me you don't belong in a high-pressure environment." Tiana felt heat rush to her face. "I'm not being defensive, I'm explaining." "I don't want explanations," Logan snapped. "I want results." A woman in line opened her mouth, then closed it. Logan leaned closer. "If this job is too much for you, say it." Don't make everyone else suffer. The word suffer cut deep. Tiana's chest tightened. For a split second, she imagined walking away, dropping the scanner, leaving the uniform on the counter, breathing freely for the first time in months. But then she thought of rent, of her mother's medical bills, of how easily unemployed became unreliable on paper. So she swallowed. "I can handle it," she said quietly. Logan straightened, satisfied. "Good, then act like it." He walked away. Something changed after that. Not in the store, but inside Tiana. For the first time, the shame didn't feel like it belonged to her. It felt misplaced, like a lie she'd been carrying for someone else. Across town, Mason was already moving. By late afternoon, he called an emergency meeting with regional leadership. Logan was summoned without explanation. He arrived confident, unaware of how much had shifted beneath his feet. When Logan walked into the glass conference room and saw Mason at the head of the table, his expression faltered. Mason didn't raise his voice. He didn't accuse. He simply spoke. "I received multiple reports today," he said. "Unprompted, anonymous, consistent." Logan shifted in his seat. "Reports about what?" "About you." The room went still. "About how you manage through fear. About how certain employees, particularly black women, are targeted more harshly. About public humiliation being normalized." Logan scoffed. "That's an exaggeration. People are sensitive. You know how this generation is." Mason leaned forward. "I was in your store yesterday." Logan froze. "In a cap," Mason continued, "standing 10 feet from you, watching you shame a cashier in front of customers." The color drained from Logan's face. "That cashier's name is Tiana Brooks," Mason said, "and she is still working there right now, wondering what she did to deserve that treatment." Logan opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Mason straightened. "Effective immediately, you are suspended pending investigation." "You can't just," Logan began. "I can," Mason said calmly. "And I am." Logan stood abruptly, anger flashing. "This is overblown. She's emotional. That's the problem." The room erupted in sharp breaths. Mason's voice dropped. "No, the problem is you mistook authority for entitlement and silence for approval." Logan left without another word. As evening approached, Tiana finished her shift exhausted, unaware of the meeting that had just ended. She clocked out quietly like always, expecting tomorrow to be the same. She didn't know that something was already unraveling. She didn't know that the silence she'd lived under was finally being challenged. And she didn't know that the next time she walked through those doors, the balance of power would feel different, fragile, uncertain, but changing. Sometimes the most dangerous moment isn't when injustice happens. It's when the person causing it realizes someone has been watching the whole time. Tiana Brooks didn't know anything had changed when she woke up the next morning. Her alarm went off at the same time. The ache in her shoulders felt the same. The quiet fear sat in her chest exactly where it always did. She moved through her apartment on autopilot, brewed coffee she barely tasted, and stood once again in front of the mirror with the uniform in her hands. For a moment, she hesitated. Yesterday had been worse than most days, not because Logan had raised his voice, he rarely needed to, but because something inside her had finally cracked. She had seen it clearly now. No amount of perfection would ever protect her in a system that already expected her to fail. Still, she put the uniform on, because dignity doesn't pay rent, because courage is easier when you don't have to worry about survival. When Tiana walked into the store, she immediately sensed something was different. It wasn't dramatic, no announcements, no meetings, no forced smiles from management. It was quieter than that, subtle, almost fragile. The manager's office door was open, empty. A regional supervisor stood near the entrance, clipboard in hand, observing rather than commanding. Employees spoke in low voices, but not the tense whispers Tiana was used to. When she passed by, a coworker actually met her eyes. "Morning," the woman said softly. Tiana paused, surprised. "Morning." It was a small thing, almost nothing, but it landed heavier than any apology Logan had ever demanded. She took her place at Register 1, heart beating a little faster than usual. Her hands still trembled when the first customer stepped up, but this time, no one hovered behind her. No one cleared their throat impatiently. No one watched her like a hawk waiting for a mistake. Mid-morning, Mason Whitaker walked in. No cap, no disguise. A tailored jacket, calm posture, unmistakable presence. A ripple of recognition passed through the store. Employees straightened, not in fear but curiosity. Customers whispered. Tiana looked up and froze. For half a second, her body prepared for something bad. It always did when Power entered the room. Then she recognized him, the man from 2 days ago, the quiet customer, the one who had told her she didn't need to apologize for everything. Mason approached slowly, deliberately, stopping a respectful distance from the counter. "Tiana," he said gently. She nodded, unsure what to say. "I wanted to speak with you," he continued, keeping his voice low enough that it didn't turn into a spectacle. "Only if you're comfortable." Her heart raced. 100 thoughts collided in her head. Had she done something wrong? Was this another test? Another trap dressed up as concern? She glanced around. The supervisor nodded once, encouraging but not intrusive. "I'm okay," Tiana said quietly. Mason took a breath. "I want to say this clearly," he said. "What happened to you was wrong. It should never have happened. And it continued because the system made it easy to ignore." Tiana felt her throat tighten. "I'm not here to ask you to forgive anything," Mason added, "and I'm not here to ask you to speak if you don't want to. I just want you to know that you were seen. Finally." A tear welled up, slow and unashamed. This time Tiana didn't wipe it away immediately. "Thank you," she said. The words were small, but they carried months of swallowed pain. Mason nodded. "There will be changes," he said. "Real ones. Not slogans, not posters on the wall." And then he stepped back, giving her space. No applause, no public redemption arc, just respect. Over the next few weeks, the changes became visible. Not overnight, not perfectly, but steadily. A confidential reporting system was introduced, independent from store management. Leadership evaluations were restructured to include employee feedback, weighted heavily. Mandatory training wasn't framed as punishment, but as accountability, with a focus on recognizing implicit bias and how authority could quietly become abuse. Logan Granger did not return. Some employees asked questions, some whispered, some were afraid the changes wouldn't last. Tiana didn't expect miracles. Trauma doesn't disappear just because the threat leaves the room. Her body still tensed when footsteps approached too quickly. She still apologized more than she should. But something essential had shifted. She started speaking up, carefully at first, suggesting small improvements, asking for help when the line grew long. And when she did, no one rolled their eyes. No one mocked her tone. No one told her she was too emotional. One afternoon, a customer snapped at her over a coupon issue. Before Tiana could even respond, another employee stepped in calmly. "She's doing her job," he said. "Let's slow this down." Tiana felt something warm spread through her chest. Relief, validation, safety. Mason continued visiting stores, not as a hero, not as a savior, but as someone learning how much damage distance had allowed. He listened more than he spoke. He heard stories that never reached spreadsheets, stories about fear disguised as professionalism, silence mistaken for loyalty. And every time he was reminded of the same truth. Power doesn't corrupt because it's loud. It corrupts because it's unchecked. One evening, as Tiana closed her register, Mason stopped by once more. "How are you holding up?" he asked. Tiana thought for a moment. "I'm still healing," she said honestly, "but I'm breathing again." Mason smiled softly. "That matters." As he walked away, Tiana watched the store continue its quiet rhythm. Customers moving through aisles, co-workers helping one another, a space that finally felt less like a test and more like a workplace. She knew the world outside hadn't changed. Racism hadn't disappeared. Bias still lived in looks, assumptions, and systems far larger than one store in Indianapolis. But something had happened here. Someone had listened. And listening, real listening, was where justice often began. Sometimes humanity doesn't arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it arrives as a pause, a question, a refusal to look away. And sometimes that is enough to start everything. Now let me ask you something. How did this story make you feel? Do you think Mason did the right thing, or should he have acted sooner? If you like this story and believe stories like this matter, comment 111 below. Tell us which country you're watching from, and please share this video with someone who needs to hear it today.